To former senior military intelligence officer Philip Ingram, who joins us now from Birmingham. Good to see you this morning. What do you make of the pledges from the Prime Minister? I was just working it out, actually. 100 million in high-grade weapons. If that was, for example, the Javelin anti-tank missile, I mean, that's just over 1,000 of them. So, I mean, it's not a huge amount, is it, in real terms?
Well, this is on top of everything else that's already been supplied into the Ukrainians. And remember, the UK has been supplying the NLAW anti-tank missile, which is similar to Javelin. Javelin's coming from the United States. But we've been supplying the Ukrainians with weapons before the Russians even invaded. And that's why the Ukrainians see the UK leading the way with the international community and the support that's going in to help them defeat the Russians. And with Boris Johnson's visit yesterday, I think he was the first G7 leader to visit Kyiv and to President Zelenskyy. So, again, he's setting a precedent.
It's very interesting that he made that surprise visit yesterday. Other people on the programme have already suggested that means that military intelligence obviously thought that it was sufficiently safe for him to do so. And therefore, in other words, the Russians really have pulled out at least of that area.
Yes, the intelligence picture is pretty good. There's an awful lot of effort by the international community being put in to monitor what the Russians are doing, and a lot of that is being fed to the Ukrainians. I know Boris Johnson, from anecdotal reporting, has been wanting to get into Kiev for some time now, and with the Russians pulling back from the north of Kiev, it has been deemed safe enough to get him in. And it was quite cheeky of the Ukrainian embassy to put it up yesterday and announce it by just saying surprise with a little smiley face.
Yeah, mind you can't blame him. I mean, in terms of morale, not just for the Ukrainian military, but for the Ukrainian civilian population, whether they've been displaced out of the country or not, what sort of impact does this have, and what message does it also send to someone like Vladimir Putin?
Well, for morale, it's huge. Your world leaders of international communities, and remember, the president of the European Commission had visited the day beforehand. That is critical to the morale of the Ukrainians, so they know that it's not just them fighting the Russians; it's the international community that's fighting the Russians, and it sends a very clear message to Vladimir Putin that the international community is coming together. And actually, I think the timings of the EU president's visit and then Boris Johnson going in, Putin's got this view that Brexit has caused a friction between the EU and the UK, and that's something that he's been trying to split even further. And this shows effectively a unity.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the pictures are obvious. They're all over the front pages of the Sunday newspapers here in Britain. They'll be everywhere else as well. And they will certainly be getting into Russia, won't they? This will give Putin a bloody nose. Just the very image of Boris Johnson and President Zelenskyy walking openly in the streets of Kiev.
It is, but the imagery getting into Moscow and being shared around Russia. I'm in touch with some journalists who work for Russian outlets on a daily basis, and they're petrified for having anything that isn't giving the Russian state's view of things on their devices. And if they see it, they look at it themselves and they delete it quickly because the thought police are going around arresting people and locking them away. And these are trained journalists.
Yeah, I mean, that's the concern, isn't it? Look, in terms of where we are with this conflict and what Putin may now want to achieve to, in a way, hold his head up to the Russian people with this, it does seem interesting. Is now the time strategically for the West, in terms of their support, to really up the ante, a sort of final push, if you like?
We need a final push to make sure that the Ukrainians are prepared for the next Russian attack. And there will be a big attack coming in from the southeast to try and capture properly the disputed Donbass region. And the Russians are resetting that. They're resetting their command and control. They're moving their armoured formations around. And this will probably be a very large armoured formation move with lots of support from air and rockets and missiles and everything else. If the Ukrainians can blunt that, stop that, and start to push it back, then Putin is properly defeated.
And I wonder what will happen then. What happens then if Putin very clearly is defeated and driven right back into Russia? What happens then?
Well, this is where the real difficulty comes in, because Putin can't lose, Zelenskyy can't give a single square meter of Ukrainian territory, and we then get into a very difficult position where Putin may consider trying to wrestle the initiative back through other more violent means. But this is where all of the other diplomatic efforts, the economic efforts, the trying to influence China, India, Pakistan to talk to Vladimir Putin, to approach things from different angles are critical at this stage. So it's not just the military actions that are going on the ground. It's those combined with everything that's happening economically, the sanctions on the oligarchs and other things, and things that are happening politically, but not directly from necessarily EU and NATO leaders, but also indirectly through Chinese leaders, Indian leaders, and whoever the new Pakistani leader is going to be, to try and get Putin to back down.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.